Yo, so I hope you haven't been binging these videos and your head spinning with too much information. Take it one at a time, absorb it, read the accompanying materials, let it sink in, reread the accompanying materials, let it sink in again. So today, race day nutrition. Again, there is an accompanying file that goes with this, so do read it. It breaks it down, makes it much easier to understand, really. So on the day of an event or a race, you want to be going into that fully fueled. So for a couple of days beforehand, you want to be eating a high carbohydrate diet. Make sure that you've been eating protein every meal as well. And you might find, if it's a longer event, like a half Ironman or above, for example, that you need to be eating sort of, around 8 to 10 grams of carbohydrate per kilogram of body weight for a couple of days to be fully carved up, ready for that, particularly if you've been doing the train low protocols leading into it. So you've eaten enough calories, you've eaten enough carbs. On the day of the event, if you're able to, I know it's difficult sometimes because these can be very early in the morning and it's difficult to eat anything early in the morning. If that's the case, then maybe you need to compromise and just get some liquid calories in a protein shake or a smoothie with some protein powder in it, something like that. But ideally, 1 to 200 grams of carbohydrate 2 to 4 hours prior to the event to be fully fueled up going into that event, so that you've got your full storage of glycogen within your body. Usually for events up to around 4 hours, you're looking at 30 to 60 grams of carbohydrate per hour. And you want to start that immediately. Don't be waiting until you're about to bonk and then start fueling yourself. Start that, have something every half hour to an hour. So 15 grams of carbohydrates every half hour. That's a gel every half an hour. For longer events above 4 hours, you're looking at 60 to 90 grams per hour. And there is recent evidence that has shown that mountain runners would benefit from 120 grams. If you're doing like mountain trail runs, long runs in those sort of terrains, 120 grams per hour is shown in the most recent evidence to massively not only improve your times but improve your recovery times. These people had less muscle soreness afterwards than those who were consuming fewer carbohydrates. As I said, anecdotally, I have known a few ultra endurance athletes who have done well on low carbohydrate diets, but that's not supported in the evidence. They're probably outliers. And that's it, really. Make sure you're hydrated. You could work out your sweat rate, but it's quite complicated to do. I prefer to use the formula 30 times your body weight in kilograms. So 30 times 75, if you weigh 75 kilograms, is 2,225, I think, 2,250, I think, milliliters of fluid per day, and then you would add 500 to 1,000 mils per hour of exercise. So on a day where you're competing for 4 hours, you want to be having probably at least 2 litres of fluid plus another 2 to 4 litres of fluid on that event day. Make sure you've got electrolytes in your water, really important. Just buy any generic electrolyte solution, have that in your water. A lot of people find it difficult to drink, they just don't think about it. Make it as palatable as possible. Buy a flavoured electrolyte drink that you enjoy. And caffeine is quite important as well. So you want to be having some caffeine about an hour before you compete. 2 to 4 milligrams per kilogram of body weight, or around 200 milligrams, which is probably a couple of double espressos or a can of Monster, for example. About an hour before you compete, and then you might find that one of your gels or a couple of your gels towards the last third of your race should be caffeine or have caffeine in it. If it's a long event, I know for a fact in the Tour de France, what they tend to do is break it down into 3 stages. So in the first third of the race, most of their nutrition will be solids, rice cakes, cereal bars, that kind of thing. In the second phase of the race, the second third of the race, they'll be having gels with protein mixed in with them. And then in the final third, gels with caffeine in them. So that's one way you can break it down. You're going to need to experiment with this. Not everybody can tolerate that amount of sugar. Ideally, your gels will be a 2-to-1 ratio of glucose to fructose, better absorption rate with that. And you may need to train your gut to accept that amount of carbohydrate. These are just, these are averages that are based on the literature, and in the literature, it's mostly elite level athletes. If you're not an elite level athlete, you probably won't be training or competing as hard as these guys. You might not need that much carbohydrate. I've had clients that have found that 30 grams per hour is a tolerable and effective amount for them, and any more than that is just really difficult to consume. There are things you can do to train your gut. So you train your tolerance level during your training. Don't never experiment on race day, because you don't want to get, be shitting your pants like Paula Radcliffe did on national television, unfortunately for her. So train your gut during training. Try and increase that tolerance level, and if you do have digestive issues, you might want to be looking at doing a FODMAP elimination diet for a while. That's not something I can advise you with. I'm not a clinician. That needs to be done as a clinical intervention that needs to be done under clinical supervision with a registered dietitian or a gastro doctor. So if that's an issue for you, you need to see the right professional to get that sorted. But train your tolerance level during training. Experiment, see where your level of carbohydrate tolerance is. I would be very surprised if many of you could tolerate more than 60 grams of carbohydrate per hour. And you might want to experiment with the sources as well. Some people prefer to eat fruit or even like dried fruit and stuff like that, but they're also quite high in fiber. And again, you don't want to be getting any messy incidents down below. Do you know what I'm saying? So simple carbs. The sports gels work great. Not everyone's cup of tea, I know, but they do work great, and that's what all the pros use. So yeah, that's your race day nutrition in a nutshell. Don't forget to read the accompanying literature with that, because that will make it just a little bit plainer and simple to see and understand. Thanks.